Kim Yuna loved the stars. She had loved them since she was a little girl, sitting on her father's shoulders in Seoul, pointing at the night sky and asking him to name every bright dot she could see. Now, at 19 years old, she lived among them. She studied xenobiology on Nova Prime, the great station that served as the heart of the Galactic Council. She was one of the youngest humans to ever live there, and she was proud of that. Her father, Park Do-won, was Earth's senior ambassador to the Council. He had worked for 30 years to build trust between humanity and the 12 species that ruled the galaxy. Humans were still considered young. They had only joined the Council 50 years ago. The older species looked at them the way adults look at children who have just learned to walk. Patient, sometimes kind, but never as equals, Yuna did not mind. She was too busy learning. She wanted to understand every species, every world, every form of life the galaxy had created. She spent her days in laboratories and libraries, and her nights walking through the station's great gardens, where plants from 100 worlds grew side by side. It was on one of those night walks that everything changed. She had taken a wrong turn. The station was enormous, and even after 2 years, she still got lost sometimes. She found herself in a corridor she had never seen before. It was darker than the others and quieter. She was about to turn back when she heard voices. They came from behind a door that was slightly open. She recognized one of the voices. It belonged to Counselor Veth, the leader of the Helix Tribunal. The Tribunal was the ruling body of the Council, made up of the 3 oldest species in the galaxy. They made all the important decisions. Yuna knew she should leave, but something in Veth's tone made her stop. He sounded angry and afraid and excited all at the same time. She moved closer to the door. "The humans are growing too fast," Veth was saying. "Their population has doubled since they joined us. Their technology improves every year. If we do not act now, they will become uncontrollable." Another voice spoke. Yuna did not recognize it. "What do you suggest?" "The containment protocol," Veth said. "We limit their expansion. We restrict their access to advanced technology. We control their breeding programs. And if they resist, we show them what happens to species that challenge the tribunal." Yuna's heart was beating so hard she thought they would hear it. She pulled out her personal device and pressed the record button. Her hands were shaking. "And the other species?" the second voice asked. "Will they support this?" Veth laughed. It was not a nice laugh. "The other species will do as they are told. Once we have dealt with the humans, we will implement similar protocols for any species that shows ... ambition. The galaxy belongs to the tribunal. It always has. It always will." Yuna had heard enough. She turned and ran. She did not make it far. 2 guards appeared in front of her, blocking her path. They were from Veth's species, tall and covered in hard scales. They grabbed her arms and dragged her back toward the door. Veth was waiting for her. His yellow eyes looked at her device, still recording in her hand. He took it from her very slowly. "Little human," he said softly, "you should not have come here." They put her in a cell. She waited there for 3 days, alone, with no food and very little water. She kept hoping her father would come. She kept hoping someone would realize she was missing and come looking for her on the 4th day. They came for her. They brought her to the great chamber where the full council met. All 12 species were represented, hundreds of delegates filling the circular room. Her father was there, standing at the front, his face pale and desperate. "Yuna!" he shouted when he saw her. He tried to run to her, but guards held him back. Counselor Veth stood on the central platform, looking down at her with those cold yellow eyes. "Kim Yuna," he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you have been found guilty of espionage against the Galactic Council. You have stolen classified information that threatens the security of every species in this galaxy. The punishment for this crime is death." "No!" Ambassador Park screamed. "She is a child. She deserves a trial. This is murder." Veth ignored him. "The sentence will be carried out immediately." 2 guards forced Yuna to her knees. She looked up at her father, and she was surprised to find that she was not afraid. She was sad. Sad that she would not see Earth again. Sad that she would not see her father's face when he grew old. Sad that she would not discover all the wonderful things the galaxy had to offer, but she was not afraid. "I love you, Father," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. Then she looked directly at the camera drones that were broadcasting her execution across the station and beyond to a corner of human space. "Tell Earth I am sorry I could not come home." The guard raised his weapon. "Ambassador." Park's scream filled the chamber as his daughter fell. The broadcast reached Earth in real time. It arrived during Cultural Unity Day, when billions of people were gathered in public spaces, watching live feeds from around the world. In Seoul, in Cairo, in Buenos Aires, in Vancouver, people were celebrating humanity's achievements and hopes for the future. And then they saw a 19-year-old girl executed for the crime of learning the truth. For a long moment, there was only silence. A silence so deep it seemed to swallow the world. People stood frozen, staring at screens, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Then, somewhere in Seoul, a bell began to ring. It was a small temple bell, old and cracked, but its voice carried through the silent streets. Another bell joined it, then another. Church bells, clock tower bells, ship bells in harbors, school bells, fire station bells. Within minutes, every bell on Earth was ringing. The sound spread across the planet like a wave, like a heartbeat, like a declaration of something that had no words yet. In the great chamber on Nova Prime, Ambassador Park held his daughter's body in his arms and wept. Around him, the council delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some of them looked disturbed by what they had just witnessed, but most of them simply looked relieved that it was over. They did not understand what they had done. They did not understand that on Earth, a planet they considered young and weak and unimportant, something ancient was waking up. Something that had slept since humanity first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Earth was mourning. And Earth was rising. 72 hours after Yuna's execution, the galaxy noticed something strange. Earth had gone quiet. No ships left the solar system. No communications were sent or received. No signals came from any human colony. It was as if someone had turned off a light. One moment, humanity was there, talking and trading and sending their ships to every corner of known space. The next moment, nothing. On Nova Prime, Counselor Veth received reports of the silence with amusement. He sat in his private chambers, drinking sweet wine from his homeworld, and laughed at the news. "They are grieving," he told his advisors. "Humans are emotional creatures. They need time to cry and hold each other and talk about their feelings. In a week, they will send angry messages. In a month, they will send diplomats to complain. In a year, they will have forgotten the girl's name." His advisors agreed. They had studied humans for 50 years. They knew that humans formed strong bonds with their children, stronger than most species. The execution of the girl was meant to send a message, and the message had been received. The silence was proof of that. "Should we send a delegation?" one advisor asked. "To express sympathy and discuss the future of human council relations?" Veth waved his hand. "Let them grieve. There is no rush. Humans are not going anywhere." He was right about one thing. Humans were not going anywhere. But he was wrong about everything else. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a bunker called the Forge, the leaders of humanity were not grieving. They were preparing. The Forge had been built 300 years ago, during the last great war between human nations. It was designed to survive anything, even the death of the planet above it. For the past 50 years, it had served a different purpose. It was the meeting place for Earth's true government, the one that made decisions too important to trust to public debate. President Kwon Tae-sun stood at the head of a long table. Around him sat the most powerful people on Earth, military commanders, scientists, intelligence chiefs, and leaders of every major nation. They had been here for 3 days, ever since the broadcast of Yuna's execution. They had not slept much. They had not needed to. They were too angry to sleep. "Report," President Kwon said. Admiral Lee Jino stood. He was a tall man, thin and gray-haired, with eyes that had seen too much war to be surprised by anything anymore. He had commanded Earth's defense fleet for 15 years, and he had spent every one of those years preparing for this moment. "The Council believes our fleet consists of 200 ships," Admiral Lee said. "They believe these ships are lightly armed and designed primarily for defense and exploration." He pressed a button on the table. A holographic display appeared above them, showing Earth and the surrounding solar system. Red dots began to appear. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. "In reality," Admiral Lee continued, "we have 10,000 warships. They have been built in secret over the past 30 years. They are hidden in underground bases on Earth, on the Moon, on Mars, and in the asteroid belt. They are fully armed and fully crewed. They can be deployed within 6 hours." The display zoomed out. More red dots appeared, scattered across human colony worlds and deep space stations that the Council did not know existed. "We also have another 8,000 ships stationed outside Council-monitored space. Our total fleet strength is 18,000 vessels. This is larger than the combined fleets of all 12 Council species." President Kwan nodded slowly. "And Project Prometheus?" A woman stood. Dr. Choi Mai-rei was small and plain, the kind of person you would pass on the street without noticing. She was also the most brilliant weapons designer in human history. "Project Prometheus has been active since first contact," she said. "Our mission was to study every species we encountered and develop weapons specifically designed to defeat them. We have biological agents that target each species' unique physiology. We have electronic warfare systems that can disable their technology. We have gravity weapons that can crush their stations and ships like paper." She paused. "We also have something else. During the past week of silence, we deployed Prometheus satellites to orbit around every Council homeworld. They passed through their defenses without detection. Each satellite carries enough firepower to sterilize the planet below it." Silence filled the room. Even people who had known about Project Prometheus for years felt a chill at hearing it described so plainly. "You are saying," President Kwan said slowly, "that we could destroy the Council. All of it, every species, every world, every station?" Dr. Choi met his eyes. "Yes, sir. If you give the order, we can end them within 1 day. There would be no survivors." President Kwan turned to face the table. "I am going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. I want you to think about Kim Yuna. I want you to think about her father, holding her body while the Council watched. I want you to think about what kind of species we want to be and what kind of message we want to send to the galaxy." He took a deep breath. "The question is this: do we show them mercy, or do we show them extinction?" The vote took less than a minute. It was unanimous. They would not destroy the Council. They would not become the monsters that the Council feared they were. But they would show the galaxy what humanity was capable of when someone hurt their children. They would show them power that made extinction look merciful. They would show them justice. After the meeting ended, Admiral Lee found Ambassador Park waiting outside the chamber. Park had returned to Earth on the same ship that carried his daughter's body. He had not spoken since. "Ambassador," Admiral Lee said, "I am sorry for your loss." Park looked at him with empty eyes. "What happens now?" "Now we send a message to the Council. We give them a chance to surrender the ones who killed your daughter. We give them a chance to make this right, and if they refuse?" Admiral Lee put his hand on the ambassador's shoulder. "Then we take everything from them. The way they took everything from you?" Park was quiet for a long moment. Then something changed in his eyes. The emptiness filled with something else, something cold and hard and patient. "I will deliver the message," he said. "I want to see their faces when they understand what they have done." Admiral Lee nodded. "Your ship leaves in 6 hours." Park turned and walked away. Behind him, through a viewing window, the first ships of the hidden fleet were rising from the ground. They filled the sky like a swarm of metal insects, blotting out the sun. Earth was no longer silent. Earth was speaking. And the galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humanity stopped asking and started telling 1 week after the execution. A single human ship appeared near Nova Prime Station. It was small, barely larger than a shuttle. It carried no visible weapons. It requested permission to dock in a calm, polite voice. Counselor Veth received the news with satisfaction. This was exactly what he had expected. The humans were sending a diplomat to complain. They would make speeches about justice and fairness and the rights of their citizens. They would demand investigations and apologies. And Veth would listen to them patiently, and then he would explain that Yuna had been a criminal, and that her execution was legal under council law, and that there was nothing more to discuss. Then the humans would go home and accept their place in the galaxy, beneath the tribunal, where they belonged. Let them dock, Veth ordered. I will meet with them personally. It is time to end this foolishness. The ship docked at the diplomatic port. The airlock opened and Ambassador Park Do-won stepped out. Veth was surprised. He had expected some junior diplomat, someone expendable, someone the humans could disown if things went badly. Instead, they had sent the father himself. The man who had screamed and wept as his daughter died. How interesting. Park was not alone. Behind him walked a human woman in military uniform. She was tall and strong, with short black hair and eyes that scanned every corner of the docking bay like a predator examining new territory. Commander Shin Hana, according to the intelligence reports. One of Earth's most decorated soldiers. Ambassador Park, Veth said smoothly. I am pleased that you have returned to us. I hope your journey was comfortable. Park looked at him. His face showed nothing. No anger, no grief, no fear. It was like looking at a statue. I have come to address the full council, Park said. All 12 species. This matter concerns everyone. Veth tilted his head. That is unusual. Normally, disputes between species are handled by the tribunal alone. This is not a dispute, Park said. This is a notification. Earth has decided to inform the council of certain facts. The council would be wise to listen. There was something in his voice that made Veth uncomfortable. A certainty that did not belong to a grieving father from a minor species. But Veth pushed the feeling aside. Humans were good at pretending to be strong. It was one of their most annoying qualities. Very well, Veth said. I will arrange a session of the full council. Shall we say tomorrow morning? 1 hour, Park said. Earth's patience is not unlimited. 1 hour later, the great chamber was full. Representatives from all 12 species filled the circular room, whispering to each other, wondering why they had been called to an emergency session. Veth sat on the central platform with the other 2 tribunal members, looking down at the humans with patient amusement. Park stood alone on the speaker's floor. Commander Shin stood behind him at the entrance, her hands clasped behind her back. Representatives of the council, Park began. His voice was calm and clear, filling the chamber without effort. 1 week ago, you watched as my daughter was executed. You watched as she was murdered for the crime of learning the truth about your government. Today, I am here to give you a choice. He raised his hand. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. Earth has 3 demands. First, the 3 members of the tribunal who ordered my daughter's death will surrender themselves to Earth. They will stand trial for murder under human law. Second, the council will issue a formal apology to humanity and will officially recognize my daughter as a victim of political assassination. Third, all containment protocols against humanity will be immediately dissolved, and their full contents will be made public. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Veth smiled widely, showing his teeth. Ambassador, he said, your grief has damaged your mind. You come to us with demands? You, from a species that has been part of this council for barely 50 years? What will you do if we refuse? Cry at us? Write angry letters? More laughter. Park waited for it to stop. If you refuse, he said quietly, we will not retaliate. We will erase you. The laughter died. Something in his voice made everyone stop. Park pressed a button on his device. The holographic display changed. It now showed the space around Earth's solar system. Red dots began to appear. At first, there were dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. They kept appearing, spreading across the display like blood in water. The chamber fell completely silent as the number climbed past 5,000, past 8,000, past 10,000. "This is Earth's true fleet," Park said. "We have been building it since first contact. You were so certain that we were young and weak and foolish that you never thought to look. You never thought that a species that had mastered atomic fire and walked on its own moon and mapped its own DNA might be capable of keeping secrets from you." The display changed again. Now it showed the Council homeworlds. Around each one, small blue dots appeared. These are Prometheus satellites. They arrived during our week of silence. They pass through your defenses without being detected. Each satellite carries weapons designed specifically for your species. Biological agents, electronic warfare systems, gravity bombs. Each satellite can destroy the planet below it within 1 hour. Veth shot to his feet. "This is a bluff. You do not have this technology. You are humans." Park looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Counselor, you studied us for 50 years and learned nothing. We are the species that split the atom and then used it to destroy 2 of our own cities, just to end a war faster. We are the species that put a man on the moon with computers weaker than a child's toy. We are the species that mapped 3 billion base pairs of our own genetic code and then started editing them. We did all of this before we ever met you." He stepped closer to the platform. "Did you truly believe that we stopped growing when we joined your council? Did you truly believe that we showed you everything we were capable of? We are humans, Counselor. We always have a backup plan. We always have a secret weapon. We always prepare for betrayal." Veth's scales had turned pale. His hands were shaking. "You have 1 day," Park said. "Surrender the tribunal members. Apologize to humanity. Reveal the containment protocols. If you refuse, my fleet will come, and we will not stop until there is nothing left to contain." He turned to leave. Then he stopped. "One more thing," he said. He pulled out a device and pressed play. Yuna's recording filled the chamber. Veth's voice, speaking clearly about the containment protocol, speaking about limiting human expansion, speaking about controlling human breeding, speaking about implementing similar protocols for other species once humanity was dealt with the other species. Representatives began to shout. They turned on the tribunal, demanding explanations. Some of them looked at the humans with something new in their eyes. Not fear. Not anger. Understanding. Park walked out of the chamber with Shin at his side. Behind them, the council collapsed into chaos. "That went well," Shin said quietly. Park did not smile. "They will refuse. Veth is too proud to surrender. He will try to fight. And when he does?" Park thought about his daughter. He thought about her smile, her laugh, her endless curiosity about the universe. He thought about her last words. "When he does," Park said, "we will show them what happens when you take something precious from humanity. We will show them why every species in the galaxy should pray that humans never have a reason to hate them." Shin nodded. "The fleet is ready. Admiral Lee is waiting for your signal." Park looked back at the chamber one last time. "Tell him to start the countdown." The next 24 hours changed the galaxy forever. It started with Yuna's recording. Within minutes of Park playing it in the council chamber, copies spread to every corner of known space. News networks broadcast it on every world. Citizens of every species heard Counselor Veth's voice describing the containment protocol. They heard him talk about controlling populations, restricting technology, and keeping ambitious species in their place. They heard him say that it would not stop with humanity, that any species showing too much growth would be contained, that the galaxy belonged to the tribunal, and the tribunal answered to no one. The reaction was immediate and violent. On the Helix homeworld, crowds gathered in the streets demanding Veth's arrest. Soldiers who had served the tribunal their entire lives put down their weapons and joined the protests. The government buildings burned. On the worlds of other council species, similar scenes unfolded. Citizens who had trusted the tribunal for centuries suddenly saw them as tyrants. Old resentment surfaced. Old wounds reopened. Species that had always felt looked down upon by the three eldest races finally had proof that their suspicions were justified. The council was tearing itself apart, far from the chaos. Admiral Lee Jinho stood on the bridge of his flagship. The ship was named Yuna's Memory, painted on its hull in letters large enough to see from space. Around it, 10,000 human warships waited in formation, their engines humming with barely contained power. "Report," Admiral Lee said. "The Council fleet is in disarray," his tactical officer reported. "Most of their ships have not moved from their homeworlds. They are afraid to leave with the riots happening. The Tribunal has ordered a strike force to attack Earth, but less than 200 ships have answered the call." 200 ships, Admiral Lee said quietly. "They are sending 200 ships against us." "Yes, sir. They should arrive at the edge of our solar system within 3 hours." Admiral Lee looked at the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 200 ships. The Tribunal was either stupid or desperate or both. Probably both. "Move the 7th Fleet to intercept," he ordered. "I want this over quickly. No games, no speeches. Just end it? Rules of engagement, sir?" Admiral Lee thought for a moment. "Disable them. Do not destroy them unless they refuse to surrender. I want the survivors to go home and tell their people what happened. I want them to describe exactly what human weapons can do." "Yes, sir." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 11 minutes. The human ships used Prometheus weapons for the first time. Electromagnetic pulses tuned to the specific frequencies of each enemy species' technology. Biological agents delivered by microscopic drones, causing temporary paralysis without permanent harm. Gravity fields that crushed weapons and engines while leaving hulls intact. The Council ships stopped firing almost immediately. They could not. Their systems were dead, their crews were unconscious, their vessels were drifting helplessly in space. The human fleet moved through them like sharks through a school of fish, tagging each disabled ship with a beacon. When the Council crews woke up, they found human messages waiting for them. The messages were simple. "We could have killed you. We chose not to. Go home. Tell them what you saw. Tell them this was mercy." On Nova Prime, Counselor Veth received the news with disbelief. 200 ships destroyed without a single human casualty. Without a single human ship even being damaged. It was impossible. It had to be a trick, but the reports kept coming. Images of his ships floating dead in space. Recordings of human weapons that seemed to target each species individually. As if humanity had spent decades studying their weaknesses and designing specific ways to exploit them because they had. Because humans were exactly what Veth had always feared they were. Patient and clever and very, very good at preparing for war. "We have to run," Veth told the other tribunal members. "We have to get off this station before the humans come for us." They tried. They gathered their most loyal guards and made for the private docking bays where their personal ships waited. They thought they could escape into deep space, find some colony world beyond human reach, and rebuild their power. They were wrong. Commander Shin Hana was waiting for them. She stood in the corridor, leading to the docking bay, alone, her hands at her sides. Behind Veth, a dozen guards raised their weapons. "Stand aside, human," Veth snarled. "You cannot stop all of us." Shin smiled slightly. "I do not need to stop all of you. Just you three." She moved. The guards were trained soldiers, veterans of 100 campaigns. They were fast and strong, and they knew how to kill. But Shin was faster. She had been modified with the best technology Earth could produce. Her muscles were reinforced, her reflexes enhanced, her bones hardened. She was what humans became when they stopped pretending to be peaceful. The fight lasted less than a minute. When it was over, the guards were on the ground, alive but unable to move. Shin stood over Veth with a weapon pressed to his head. Kim Yuna, she said quietly. Say her name. Veth's yellow eyes were wide with fear. What? Say her name. The girl you killed. Say it. Kim. Kim Yuna. Good. Shin pulled him to his feet. Now you're going to say it again. On Earth, in front of every human being alive. You are going to tell them her name, and you are going to tell them what you did to her. And then you are going to spend the rest of your life answering for it. She looked at the other two tribunal members. Cowering on the floor, all three of you. They were loaded onto a human ship and taken to Earth. The journey took 3 days. The tribunal members spent it in a cell, alone with their thoughts. Veth tried to tell himself that this was not the end. That the other species would rally to his defense. That the galaxy would not allow humanity to become so powerful. That someone, somewhere, would stop this. But as the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, he looked out the window and saw something that broke him. Billions of humans stood below. They filled every city, every town, every open space on the planet. And each of them held a small light. Candles, lanterns, torches, glowing screens. Billions of tiny lights held up to the sky, forming an ocean of fire that covered the entire world. A vigil. For Kim Yuna, for a 19-year-old girl who had only wanted to learn about the universe, Veth had thought he understood humans. He had studied them for 50 years. He had read their histories, analyzed their societies, measured their technology. He had concluded that they were emotional, disorganized, and easily controlled. He had been wrong. He had not understood that humans did not fight because they wanted power. They did not build weapons because they wanted to conquer. They did not prepare for war because they enjoyed it. They did all of these things because they protected their own. Because every human child was precious. Because when you killed one of their children, every single human in the galaxy took it personally. Veth had killed one girl and 8 billion. People had decided to make him pay as the ship descended toward the surface. Veth finally understood why the containment protocol had been necessary. Why he had feared humanity from the moment he first saw them. It was not because they were strong. It was because they loved. And there was nothing in the universe more dangerous than a human with something to love. The ship landed. The airlock opened. Admiral Lee stood waiting, flanked by soldiers in ceremonial armor. Welcome to Earth, the Admiral said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. Your trial begins tomorrow. I suggest you rest. You will need your strength. He leaned closer. You are going to be here for a very long time. 6 months later, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The trial of the tribunal members had been broadcast to every world in known space. Billions of beings from 12 species watched. As Counselor Veth and his 2 colleagues stood before a human court, they watched as evidence was presented. They watched as witnesses testified. They watched as the 3 most powerful beings in the galaxy were treated not as leaders, but as criminals. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was life imprisonment. Many species expected execution. Humans were emotional, after all. Humans were vengeful. Surely they would kill the beings who had murdered one of their children, but humans surprised them. Death is easy, President Quantayson explained in a speech after the sentencing. Death is an ending. We do not want to give them an ending. We want them to live. We want them to spend every day for the rest of their lives teaching young people about what they did. We want them to become a lesson. We want the galaxy to look at them and remember what happens when governments believe they are above justice. Veth and the other tribunal members were sent to a special facility where they would spend their remaining years as teachers. Students from every species would come to learn from them. Not about leadership or politics, but about arrogance, cruelty, and the consequences of treating other beings as inferior. It was, many beings agreed, a very human punishment. Creative, unexpected, and somehow more terrible than death. With the tribunal gone, the council needed to rebuild. The old system was broken. No one trusted it anymore. Something new had to take its place. Humanity could have taken control. They had the fleet, the weapons, the power. No one could have stopped them if they had decided to rule the galaxy. They refused. We did not do this to become emperors, Admiral Lee said when asked why humans were not claiming leadership. We did this because someone killed our child. We have made our point. Now we want to go back to what we were doing before. Exploring, learning, growing. We will be part of the new council, as equals. But we will not rule over anyone. The Prometheus satellites were removed from orbit around the council homeworlds. They were not destroyed, just relocated to human space. Everyone understood what that meant. The weapons still existed. They could be deployed again if necessary. But for now, humanity was choosing peace. A new council was formed. It had no tribunal. Decisions required agreement from at least 8 of the 12 species. No single group could control everything. It was messy and slow and sometimes frustrating, but it was fair. And after centuries of the tribunal's hidden agendas, fair was exactly what the galaxy needed. Earth appointed a new senior ambassador to the council. Her name was Shin Hena. She stood in the great chamber of Nova Prime, the same room where Yuna had been executed, and addressed the representatives for the first time. I am a soldier, she said. I have spent my life training for war. I know how to fight, and I am very good at it. But I did not come here to fight. I came here because I believe in what Kim Yuna believed in. She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of 12 different species. She believed that we could learn from each other. She believed that the universe was big enough for all of us. She believed that being different did not mean being enemies. She was 19 years old, and she understood something that the tribunal never did. That strength is not about controlling others. It is about protecting them. She straightened her shoulders. Humanity will protect this council. We will use our strength to keep the peace, not to dominate. We will be your partners, your allies, your friends. But hear me clearly. If anyone, ever, harms another innocent being the way Yuna was harmed, we will come for them. Not with armies, not with weapons, but with justice. Because that is what humans do. We protect our own. And now all of you are our own. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the representatives began to applaud. It started softly and grew until it filled the room. Beings who had feared humanity a week ago were now cheering for them, not because they were afraid, because they believed. On the first anniversary of Yuna's death, a memorial was unveiled on Nova Prime. It stood in the garden where she had loved to walk, surrounded by plants from 100 worlds. The statue showed her as she had been in life, young and curious, her hand reaching toward the stars. The plaque at the base read, "She only wanted to learn." She taught us everything. People came from across the galaxy to see it. They left flowers and notes and small gifts. Children touched the statue's hand and made wishes. It became one of the most visited places on the station on that anniversary day. Ambassador Park Do-won came to see it for the first time. He had retired from public life after the trial. He had done what he set out to do. He had delivered justice for his daughter. Now he lived quietly in a small house in Korea, tending a garden, reading books, trying to find some kind of peace, but he had to see the memorial. He had to see what the galaxy had made of his little girl. He stood before the statue for a long time, not speaking. Shin Hana stood nearby, giving him space. The statue was beautiful. The artist had captured Yuna's smile perfectly, that mix of wonder and determination that had defined her. Park reached out and touched her stone hand. "I miss you," he whispered. "Every day. I will miss you until I die," a small voice interrupted him. "Excuse me?" Park turned. A child stood behind him, small and covered in scales that had not yet hardened. The same species as Counselor Veth, the child held out a piece of paper. A drawing. It showed 2 figures holding hands under a bright sun. One figure was clearly human. The other was clearly not. "My teacher told us about your daughter," the child said. "She said your daughter wanted everyone to be friends. I drew this for her. Can you give it to her?" Park looked at the drawing. His eyes filled with tears, but he did not look away. "She would have loved this," he said. His voice was steady, even though his heart was breaking. "She would have put it on her wall." She collected drawings from children all over the galaxy. She said they were the best art in the universe because they showed how people really felt. The child smiled, showing small teeth. Will you keep it for her? Yes, Park said. I will. The child nodded, satisfied, and ran back to a group of classmates waiting nearby. They were from 5 different species, talking and laughing together like it was the most natural thing in the world. Park watched them for a long moment. She would have liked that, he said quietly. Different species, learning together? That was her dream. Shin moved to stand beside him. It is happening because of her. The new council, the new schools, the new treaties. It all started with her. She changed everything. Park looked back at the statue, at his daughter's face, frozen in stone, smiling at the stars forever. She was 19, he said. She had so much more to give. She gave enough, Shin said. She gave everything. Park stood there until the station's artificial sun began to set, painting the garden in shades of gold and red. He thought about his daughter. He thought about the galaxy she had wanted to build, and the galaxy that was finally starting to build itself. He thought about the bells ringing across Earth on the day she died. The sound of 8 billion people mourning together. The sound of humanity waking up, and he thought about a child's drawing. 2 figures holding hands under a sun, maybe. Yuna's dream was not dead after all. Maybe it was just beginning. Park placed the drawing at the base of the statue, next to the flowers and notes left by others. Then he straightened up, took a deep breath, and smiled. Thought it was the first real smile since his daughter died. Goodbye, Yuna, he said. I will see you again someday. But not yet. There's still work to do. He turned and walked away, leaving the memorial behind. Above him, the stars were coming out. Thousands of them, millions of them, more than any human could count. Each one a sun. Each one surrounded by worlds. Each one full of possibilities. Yuna had wanted to visit them all. Humanity would do it for her.